Thank you all for being with us this evening for the Tuesday, June 24th, 2014 Board of Education regular meeting. I will call the meeting to order. I will declare that a quorum is present and that the media has been notified. Moving on to agenda item number 2, do I have a motion and a second regarding the approval of the agenda?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Obie. Mr. Wright, second. All those in favor of approving tonight's agenda, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Tonight's agenda has been approved. Now, if we would ask everyone to join with us in the opening prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance. Our Father,
who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and glory, forever and ever. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Board, agenda item number 4, entitled Approval of the Minutes of the June 10th, 2014 regular meeting. Do I have a motion and a second for the approval of the minutes of June 10th?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Wright.
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Etheridge. Mr. Wright has made a motion to approve the minutes of June 10th, 2014. Dr. Etheridge has seconded that motion. All those in favor of approving the minutes of June 10th, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. The motion carries unanimously. The minutes of the June 10th, 2014 regular meeting have been approved. Now moving to agenda item number 5, entitled Approval of the May 2014 Head Start Reports and Budgets. Do I have a motion and a second?
Mr. Chair, you do. I move that we approve the May 2014 Head Start budget to include the budget expenditures reports and Head Start credit card report, the health services plan, the revised parent handbook, the revised student handbook, and also the prospective new hires as presented in agenda item 5.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Hayes. Mr. Obie has made a motion. I will restate that for the record. That motion has been seconded by Mr. Hayes. The motion reads as follows: to approve the May 2014 Head Start Budget Expenditures Report and Head Start Credit Card Report, Health Services Service Plan, Revised Parent Handbook, Revised Student Handbook, and Prospective New Hires as presented in Agenda Item 5. Do we have any discussion regarding Agenda Item 5? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries unanimously. Prior to moving to agenda item number 6, I do want to let everybody know that we will not have legacy builders this evening. However, if you would check the desk where you walk in, the main entrance, there is a legacy builders report for your review. It is an end of the summary or end of the year summary. It has some great features on the valedictorians, salutatorians, and honor officers of all of our high schools. Some scholarship information for many of our students who received scholarships this past year. So I would encourage you to secure a copy and read these at your convenience. Now we're moving on to agenda item number 6, entitled Citizen Comments. Prior to calling the first speaker to the podium, and that first speaker will be Mr. Lane Walford. Mr. Walford, if you will go ahead and begin walking towards the podium, I'll read the citizen comment procedures. In order to conduct the meeting in an orderly and efficient manner, we ask that you honor the following guidelines. Stakeholder comments are welcomed and encouraged. However, the board will not take immediate action on public comments at this meeting. Any person wishing to address the board must register prior to the meeting. Comments must be regarding programs, policies, or procedures. Comments regarding an employee or student other than the child of the speaker will not be heard in public session. Groups addressing the same topic should select one speaker. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per speaker. The board chair reserves the right to allot additional time or halt public comments that do not adhere to the guidelines. Mr. Walford, you are here to speak on the proposed ban on volunteer coaches. You have the podium, 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dr. Thompson, other members of the board, thank you for your time. My name is Lane Walford. I live here in Moats Corner. A lot of people have asked me why, I'm involved with this. Why am I? My wife and I started a petition against this proposed policy. I love this community. I love this town. I love the schools here. My grandparents were employees of this district. My grandfather served as superintendent of Moats Corner Schools. Both my parents worked in this district. Also had a brother that worked in this district. 3 of those were football coaches. So I feel like I've got a pretty good idea of what it takes to be a coach in this district specifically. You'll see we've got a lot of other people here tonight also in support of this. Some of them from Moats Corner, some of them from Hanahan, Timberland, Goose Creek, wherever. They're here to support their communities. Small towns like ours, the school makes your community, and that's why we're all here. I've talked to a lot of different folks, and I've talked to at least one person affiliated with each school in our district. And it's been hard for me to find someone that works with those schools, specifically in athletics, that thinks this is a good idea, to have a blanket policy to ban parent volunteer coaches. We all come back to the same conclusion. Let the athletic directors make decisions on all coaches, parent volunteers, regular volunteers, paid coaches, what have you. They get paid a lot of money to do that in a lot of instances. According to other employees of the district, they make a good bit of money. Let's let them do their jobs and hold their feet to the fire if they're not doing a good job. Let's bring them to the table on that. We also have a county athletic director who those athletic directors report to, not to mention the principals at the schools. We keep coming back to the same thing. Let's let them do it. The board has a lot of responsibilities, and I hate to see a blanket policy. You're going to throw out so many good coaches to get rid of 1 or 2 if you perceive there's a problem with some coaches in the district. I say that you get rid of those, but not a blanket policy to get rid of all the good ones that we have. Specifically at Berkeley High School, we had 3 programs this past year that stood out above the rest. 2 of them played for the lower state championship. 1 of them won the region for the 2nd year in a row, qualified for the district championship. That was softball, girls tennis, and baseball. Between those 3 programs, they would lose 9 coaches if this policy goes into effect. I mean, that's strong. That would devastate those programs that those coaches have put so much time into, and the head coaches and the athletic directors have put so much time into. So that's just at Berkeley. At other schools, they also would be affected. You have a coach at Stratford who's given 12 years to the baseball program, would be going into his 13th season, but now he has a son who's on the JV team. So he started when his son was just born, but now he wouldn't be able to continue coaching under this policy. We have other instances all throughout the county. Also, there was an article in the state newspaper over the weekend about AC Flora High School, which is in Richland 2. They have 22 varsity head coaches, okay? Only 8 of them are full-time employees of the school district.
Mr. Walford, your time's up. Did you have one statement you wanted to end on?
I think the biggest thing is that we want to make sure that we feel that it's vital to let the athletic directors do their job and handle these things going forward and hold their feet to the fire if you don't think they're doing the right thing with all their coaches.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Walford. We appreciate your comments as well as being here. Next up is Ashley Carmen. Now, I've got 2 names, Ashley Carmen and Christy Orton, so I'll invite both of you to the podium. Following Ashley Carmen and Christy Orton will be Kathleen Regal-Buto. Say it for me. Regal-Buto. Thank you. Thank you. And Ashley Carmen and Christy Orton will be speaking on parent volunteer coaches. Ladies, the podium's yours.
That's correct. The first address I'm going to address for Miss Christy Orton Hill. I'd like to take a moment of your time to let you know how greatly our lives have been positively impacted by the volunteer coaches at Berkeley County High School. My son just graduated from Berkeley High School. He was active in the Beta Club, a member of the National Honor Society. He was a member of the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. He graduated with honors and received numerous awards in baseball. He will be attending Winthrop University this fall and majoring in exercise science. I say all this not to brag, but to let you know about the end product of excellent coaching. Eric struggled in middle school. There were times when parents didn't know anything, and the only way to reach out to him would be through the compassionate help of Coach Connor Salisbury. Eric would listen to his coaches. His future now is bright and promising because of assistance in his life from the parent coaches on and off of the field. These are the individuals that helped my son stay focused and out of trouble. Parent volunteer coaches have cared for my son as their own. Who knows how Eric's life would have turned out without the help of awesome parents that have volunteered their time, their heart, and lives to these children. I do know that the school board might consider an increase in the budget for the more school resource officers if they take away parent volunteer coaches. These guys help out with discipline more than you would ever know. I never thought I'd hear of a school board asking for less parent involvement. Please consider the future of our youth and all the surrounding lives that will be impacted when a major decision regarding parent volunteer coaches is made. Thank you for your time. Christy Hill, proud parent of Eric Orton.
Thank you. Thank you to both of you for being here this evening. Ms. Hill, did you want to say anything? I'll give you the opportunity. Okay, you got it. All right. Well, thank you all for being with us this evening. Anything else, Ms. Carmen?
Yes,
Okay, go ahead.
I wanted to address you.
I'll start the time over for you then, Ms. Carmen.
Okay.
All right, go ahead.
No problem.
It's hard to keep
I'll be
track.
quick.
It's all right.
I just wanted to say, again, as I addressed you guys on June the 10th, that I feel like we've been begging, the lower schools are begging for parental assistance. And this policy that you're trying, the blanket policy that you're trying to implement is unnecessary because it's very discriminatory. It's saying, we want your help here, but we don't have people in place here to handle this situation. As I said, my husband's in the U.S. Air Force. When they have a problem within the squadron, they don't decimate the squadron. They handle the troop in the problem, and they move forward with that. That's what your ADs are for. That's what the county AD is for. I can personally speak from personal experience about how a parent volunteer has impacted my life. Again, my husband is in the United States Air Force. He was deployed for 6 months overseas. He's part of the Aero Medical Evacuation Unit and saw many ugly things while he was there. That left me home alone as a single parent of 3 biological daughters and 1 exchange student from Madrid, Spain. My exchange student and my middle school student, who is a rising 8th grader this year, both played on the Berkeley girls tennis team. Because I have all females, I'm very cautious and conscientious. I understand that the coaches do go through sled checks. There was one parent coach that I was in an area of need, and I needed help getting rides back and forth. There was a parent volunteer coach that stepped up to the plate and made those things happen for me. So what you're saying to the community by trying to blanket us is that we don't care what your needs or your circumstances look like. You're saying we're just going to take care of it all. And in my opinion, athletic directors are athletically inclined. That's why you've hired them. That's what they're there for. The board is here for educational budget things, and I feel like that you're stepping over like the code that you need to go through. I believe it needs to be handled individually through the athletic directors. And so without the help of a female parent volunteer coach, my exchange student wouldn't have had this experience, nor would my biological daughter, because I was helping serve our country by serving my home and my other children while my husband was overseas serving. So I just wanted to say it is something that's big. They make a big difference. They make a big impact, and they're very, very helpful. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mrs. Carmen. We appreciate your comments as well as being with us here this evening. Ms. Regalbuto, I apologize for not pronouncing your name correctly. Ms. Regalbuto is here requesting a full road safety audit as per recommendations for the Sangaree schools. Did I state that correctly?
Yes.
Yes.
In there, it did say, as per federal highway safety, I think.
I appreciate you helping me with that acronym.
Okay.
I did not know. So Federal Highway Standards Administration.
Federal Highway Safety Administration.
Safety Administration. Well, thank you for being with us, and you have the podium.
Okay, I'd like to thank the board and, for allowing citizen input tonight, as well as for the resolution that was passed due to Ms. Deborah Bagley coming in March regarding the same issue. Essentially, the school board did pass a resolution looking at the safety of the child pedestrians that we have at Sangaree Elementary School. My understanding is that they have requested many road safety audits from South Carolina Department of Transportation, and you've probably all already seen the one on top here. This is the most recent one. As we look at it, one of the things that I became aware of after doing a little bit more research into this is that each time we've gone to DOT, what they've done is a traditional road safety inspection. This gets into the idea of basically they come out and they count cars, and we don't have enough cars on that corner to merit any further recommendation. Federal Highway Association suggests that it needs to be carried out by a multidisciplinary team. They call in not only the highway department, but in the case of a school, it depends on your situation, but in the case of a school, they call in school administrators, they call in parents, they call in people from the community, because child pedestrians have different needs than adult car drivers. If that were a factory that had exactly the same amount of traffic, the same amount of days per year, same times, no, it wouldn't be worthy of more consideration, because essentially with adults you have a lot fewer pedestrians. The pedestrians you have are taller and more capable of navigating a street. It's fairly obvious with the DOT report, very first paragraph, they're talking about traffic congestion. What the school district needs to be concerned about is not the traffic congestion, but the safety of the children crossing the streets. And so they came up with some ideas that could potentially help the whole traffic situation. They suggested increasing the loop as far as car storage, which the district has done, but it still doesn't cut down on the number of cars that are eventually driving through that intersection that the children are trying to cross. The school district, at least at Sangaree, I don't know about district-wide, has made some accommodation for that because the walkers get out of school later than the car riders do, which we'll hope gets rid of some of that traffic, but there's not a whole lot more that they can do with that. I have noted that the school district has made some good safety recommendations that would have been recommended by other places. Installation of a sidewalk. At one time, there was not a sidewalk from Royal Road back to the intermediate school. They've also hired a second crossing guard, which just, I'm not sure whether that helps the traffic flow any, but it does help because of the number of children that the crossing guard is trying to deal with.
Mrs. Regalbuto, that is your time. Was there one statement you wanted to end with?
Yeah, there is actually on the third page a difference between a road safety audit and the traditional type that they've asked for before. And on the back is part of their handbook on the unique problems with the child pedestrians as opposed to.
Well, we thank you for your comments. This is an issue that we're very concerned about. I believe Dr. Thompson wants to speak, and we'll definitely want to stay in contact with you.
Yeah, I just want to take you one step that we're taking for next year, and I know it's a small step, but we're hoping it's going to help. We don't get reimbursed for bus routes within a mile and a half of the school, but within those schools, we do pick up children within a mile, but we're going to try it and have bus stops just across the road, and maybe have bus stop pick up at 7:15, where we'll actually bus children across the road. We want to try that for the first couple of months of school, and give everyone in the area the opportunity to get on the bus, and then we'll bring them to school. And that's just one more thing that we're going to try to do. Mr. Hayes visited the school with me and the principal, and we'll try it to see if that helps. I know it's not
I
perfect
imagine
fix.
it will. It's one of those, it's probably more the responsibility of the people who own the road, but I do appreciate the school district trying.
We're going to use our local funds to pick those children up and bring them across the street and designate a bus solely for that purpose at the expense of the district. And, we just encourage the parents to put the children on the bus.
Right.
Not try to
Well,
cross
I
the
know
road.
parents that take their kids to school now because they don't feel safe letting them
So
cross
we're going to
that
put a
street.
couple stops on Sangaree Parkway and then the next intersection on either way. I don't recall the name of the roads, but to pick up children, and we'll get that message out prior to the start of
Heather
school.
Drive is one of them.
Well, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you so
thank
much
you.
for being here this evening. Next up is Anthony Youngblood, and your solution, Dr. Thompson, sounds encouraging. I wish you luck. We'll start that next school year.
Start of the school year.
Good. Mr. Youngblood, the podium is yours, sir, and you're here to speak about parent coaching.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I've prepared a statement for the sake of brevity. I come before you as a parent, former athlete who played baseball until the age of 35, and a volunteer coach representing Timberland High School. My education consists of an associate's degree from Trident Technical College, where I did my bachelor degrees at Charleston Southern University. I've been a volunteer coach for the last 10 years, where I've served as a baseball Little League coach, coaching 4 separate teams to district championships. I've served as coach for Bono Recreation Department for wrestling and baseball under Athletic Director Danny Tracy, who himself has been a volunteer coach since the year of 2000. I've coached our Dixie Boys team to undefeated seasons, as well as coaching our first wrestling state champion, state runner-up, and 3 lower state champions. I've been working as a volunteer baseball coach at Timberland High School under Coach Pond, Coach Perry, as well as the varsity wrestling team working under Coach Ryan Rhodes. During my time at Timberland High School, I've never been a part of any controversy nor had any issues pertaining to my ability to coach the young men in their respective sports. It is my opinion that if you as the governing body of Berkeley County School District decide to ban parent volunteer coaches within this county, you will limit small schools such as ours from having the ability to remain competitive with the larger schools, simply due to the fact that there is a limited amount of coaching resources available to us. To mandate that a teacher who has no prior knowledge or experience in a sport coach that sport is unjust to the kids who depend on the coaches that they have now, who have shown the experience necessary to be effective communicators, coaches, and mentors. It is my opinion that the decisions pertaining to schools' coaching staff be solely the responsibility of that school's athletic director, and if at any time there be a question as to the effectiveness of a parent coach, it is up to that school's athletic director to address the issue as he or she may see fit. If there is an issue with the athletic director failing to address issues which are legitimate and factual in nature, then at that time the school board should review the effectiveness of the said athletic director. I ask that you do not punish or restrict our kids' ability to receive valuable coaching knowledge and experience from a volunteer coach simply because the coach chose a different career path away from the education system, but has demonstrated that they are fully capable and willing to donate their time to helping our youth become responsible, disciplined, contributing members of our community. Thank you for your time you've given me here today, and I hope you will do what's in the best interest of small growth programs such as ours.
Thank you, Mr. Youngblood. We appreciate your comments as well as being with us here this evening. Our final speaker for this evening is Georgie Ford. Georgie Ford is from Panopolis, and would like to speak about volunteering in schools. Mrs. Ford, the podium is yours.
Thank you all for hearing me, and I have no clue what I've gotten myself into. My thing was, I thought, when Madeline Hare wanted to take the prayer out of schools, this is the same thing. One person complaining, and it's going to ruin it for all of us. I don't volunteer coach, but I do volunteer fix cheerleader uniforms for Berkeley High School, Timberland High School, St. John's Christian Academy, no charge. I help the cheerleaders at the games. I went to Berkeley High School for 12 years, and I liked it so much I never missed a day. So I am Berkeley blue and gold. It's going to kill our kids. I did help, like, Little League coach with softball and basketball and gave my time. And it's a lot of work. I can remember one incident, one parent complaining because their child didn't get to play as much as the other one. And that child had a lot of talent. But that child was didn't come to practice, didn't give all of she got. And I would rather give somebody that didn't have the talent but gave it all. And they would get to play a little bit. So, you know, it is an instant where a child doesn't get to play because they're not as good as the other, or somebody is pushed back a little bit because they need to have a little bit of heart in them to want to play. But I follow our sports. My husband and I'm the one that reads the sports page. He's the one that wants to read the editorials or the business stuff. I'm just a sports person. I love it. I don't want to see anything hurt with, just like I sat behind the Timberland fella and I said, we're all in it together. Everybody in Berkeley County. It's not a Berkeley High School thing. It's not a Timberland thing. It's not a Cane Bay or Hanahan or Goose Creek thing. It's a person thing. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I'm glad I was last because I'm sure can't talk like the rest of them, but thank you.
Ms. Ford, you did wonderful, and thank you for helping our cheerleaders for all these years. That does conclude our citizens' comments tonight. As always, we thank all of you for being here with us.
Dr. Murray.
Yes, Ms. Dobie, let me finish my comment, and then I'll be glad to defer to you. I wanted to thank all of you for being here this evening and sharing your comments with us. We're actually getting ready to deal with this item. If you would like to please stick around, we'd like to share some information with you. In fact, there's been a lot of misinformation out there because we haven't had the opportunity yet to share this policy. Tonight is that night. So we thank you for being here. Mr. Obie.
I just want to ask everybody that's here in support of the volunteer coaches, if you can just stand so we know how many people are here in support of volunteer coaches.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you very much for coming out. Thank you.
All right, moving on to agenda item number 7 under the category of human resources. We have 2 items for action tonight. The first one is agenda item 7A, first reading of policy JH, student activities. That will be followed by agenda item 7B, the 2014-2015 salary book. Taking agenda item 7A, we'll begin with that. First reading of policy JH, student activities. The Policy Review Committee has received a recommendation from the superintendent. The Policy Review Committee does have a recommendation and report for the board this evening. So I'll yield to Madam Secretary, Ms. Schwabe, to present that report and recommendation. Ms. Schwabe?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. The Policy Committee did meet and look over the wording that is being inserted into Policy JH titled Student Activities. We did talk about a number of things, including the information we had received from Dr. Thompson and from parents and school personnel that contacted us. And we really, our conversations spanned everything from liability and privacy issues with student information, all of those kinds of things as we really went through this word by word. I think, and the other committee members can join in, that there was absolutely no time that we felt that the policy is banning parent volunteers. That's not what that says in any way whatsoever. And we felt strongly as a committee that we need to make sure we made that statement to everyone involved here that there's absolutely no reason for any of us to believe we could accomplish all that we do in this district without the help of parents and volunteers. And so we're a little surprised that this policy has been discussed in that way. I do have a motion from the committee, and then I'm sure once we have a motion we can discuss. I do move that we approve first reading of revisions to policy JH, titled Student Activities, as listed in agenda item 7A.
Thank you, Ms. Schwabe. You have made a motion to approve the first reading of policy JH entitled Student Activities. Do we have a second for that motion?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Lee. We do have a motion and second on the table. This enables us to discuss the policy revision. Actually, it's a policy addition. So I'll open that up for discussion. I started at the far right with the budgets, Mr. Cooper, so if it's okay with you. Go ahead, Mr. Cooper.
Point of order, maybe. No. But for the benefit of all those that stood up.
Would you like for the policy to be read, Mr.
Could we
Cooper?
read
Thank you so
what
much.
we're going to be talking about? We all have copies of it here, and they don't.
Yes. All right. You want to read
It doesn't matter.
You have such a better reading voice, that former teacher voice.
Oh,
than I
I'm
have.
sure I do, but you go ahead.
I'll give it a shot. Again, this is policy JH. It was issued October 23rd, 2012. Of course, if this passes second reading, it will have an issuance or revision date of 2014. Under the section entitled, and it's the second section of the policy, Interscholastic Activities, and in parentheses, high school, the addition would be, the principal is responsible for assigning staff to coaching and supervisory responsibilities, including coordinating volunteers to support interscholastic activities. Volunteers must adhere to policy IFCD. Principals should not assign volunteer parents of student athletes that are not full-time employees of the district to coaching responsibilities at the varsity or junior varsity level within the program in which their son or daughter is participating. The principal may request an exception to this guideline if the parent coach is determined to be vital to the existence of the program. Now, I'm going to read that a second time because you probably need to hear it a second time. I know I need to hear it. When I can't see it, I need to hear it more than once. The principal is responsible for assigning staff to coaching and supervisory responsibilities, including coordinating volunteers to support interscholastic activities. Volunteers must adhere to policy IFCD. Principals should not assign volunteer parents of student athletes that are not full-time employees of the district to coaching responsibilities at the varsity or junior varsity level within the program in which their son or daughter is participating. The principal may request an exception to this guideline if the parent coach is determined to be vital to the existence of the program. And I appreciate you, Mr. Cooper, for reminding me to read it. All right, we have a motion and a second on the table. Do we have any comments or discussion regarding the motion on the table? Or if anyone from the committee would like to add any additional comments?
Which end were you starting on, that end?
Well, you've got me confused, Mr. Booth. Very helpful, though, Mr. Cooper. Mr. Hayes, we'll start with you. I'm glad we read it. Do you have anything that you'd like to add, Mr. Hayes? You were a member of the committee.
The biggest problem I had throughout this whole process was the amount of misinformation that people were spreading in the community. There was never any intent on anybody on this board's part to do away with the volunteers. I coached in this district for 12 to 15 years, and volunteers are very much part of my program and the programs of the schools. So, it's just been very upsetting to me that so much misinformation was put out there, and that some people would spread it the way it was spread. And, you know, it's because there was never any intent, and no one ever even mentioned that. That's it.
Well, thank you, Mr. Hayes. Any other comments to my left? I'll work my way to the right. Dr. Etheridge?
Just one question. If a principal does request an exception, he would make that request to the superintendent?
Superintendent's designee, which would be the district athletic director.
Okay.
Any other questions, Dr. Etheridge?
No, sir.
All right. Any other comments? I have a couple, but I'll defer to the board. Mr. Wright?
But that particular part where you say when it's deemed necessary or vital to the program, what are we saying? How do you assess that? Are you saying if the coach says that this person is well-trained or have a complete understanding of what we're doing here on the varsity football team, and I would like for this parent to be a part of the coaching staff, then the principal then will direct that to our district athletic director or person who's in charge of that, and then pretty much have an appeal to allow that coach to participate.
That's my understanding as well, Mr. Wright.
Now,
go ahead. Did you have a further comment?
What I want to make sure that we have some complete clarity there, because how do we really assess the fact that one is better than the other, or because both volunteer parent pretty much think that they're the best things in sliced bread. They want to give all they can to the program.
Sure.
In spite of, you know, and just want to make sure that we understand that. And I think, it gives some room to allow even a parent now to still participate if they're going to adhere to the guidelines and the director or the athletic director or the head coach that, you know, there's no preferential treatment for your child or any other player because everybody is going to be given the same opportunity. I just want to make sure that we're understanding that. And this is what I'm trying to get out of that last part. Am I saying what the policy is supposed to read, or can you clarify that for me just a little bit if I missed it?
Was that question directed to me?
I mean, to anyone.
Yeah. My evaluation and my direction to the district athletic director when it comes to assigning coaches, first we want to look to staff members to assign head coaching responsibilities. But in some cases, we may not have a staff member that has the skill set to be a tennis coach, to be a volleyball coach.
Right. Okay.
In that case, there might not be but one baseball coach in the school, and you have 3 teams.
Sure.
So, depending on the circumstances, then you would have to look to outside options, and then you could make the appeal for the parent coach based on the situation and the people that you have to choose from.
And I think another thing that would be clarification for me too, if that head coach or the athletic director is having a problem with confrontation with that parent coach, and they do not want to adhere to the rules and regulation by this district in terms of your participation, and now you're volunteering and you're kind of like stepping out of line, then we have to draw a line there too. Whereas the head coach or the athletic director has the right now to make a decision on whether or not you're going to participate in this program. I mean, I feel that our head coach and athletic director should have that leadway, because you got to be able to control your program. Because if you can't control it, then it's going to continue to fall out of place, and that's my concern. You know, and I mean, I'm saying this to the people that are here as well, because I think that every parent that participate with their student athlete, they're passionate about it. And it doesn't just apply to football, baseball, basketball. It can be band, whatever activity they're involved in. You're going to be very passionate about it. But I think sometimes we're going to have to draw the line, even though you're passionate, but you got to respect, you know, the head coach and the athletic director. And I think if we put those things in place, I can support this policy if everybody understands that.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. Thank you. And I'll respond to that as well. I was a member of the committee. There were 4 of us, Ms. Lee, Ms. Schwabe, Mr. Hayes, and myself. We discussed that at length. What exactly are we trying to do here? What do we value? And we spent a great deal of time talking about the importance of having an employee-based coaching staff and all of the positives that they bring to the table. And one of the stories that I shared was whenever we would hear one of our coaches' voices in the hall, we all straightened up and we walked a straight line. We weren't going to dare misbehave around those coaches. And my concern is if we move away from that traditional employee-based coaching staff, we're going to lose a lot of those relationships that were so important to me. But what we kept coming back to was we can in no way, shape, or form ever cancel a sport due to the lack of someone coaching that sport. So we don't have the intention of ever canceling any sports, but we do have the intention of sticking with the traditional employee-based high school sports coaching staff. That's always been in place.
Right.
But I'm with you. I'm not going to ever support a sport being canceled due to the lack of a coach. Right. Any other comments? You've been very patient to the right. Do we have any comments or discussion to the right? Is it good to be on the right politically? Sure. All right. Ms. Schwabe, Ms. Lee, not hearing you?
Go ahead. I do have. I guess for me, it was a surprise that we had as many volunteer coaches as we do.
Yeah.
We all got the same information. We have one school that stands out, and I'm not going to be ugly and name any schools, but we have one school that stands out to me and has twice the amount of volunteer coaches that any other school has. And I guess, to me, that's a problem, because we need, if the children are in our charge when they're playing sports, then we need to have one of our employees there. And I know it's not a place for this policy, but in this revision or this addition, it says volunteers must adhere to policy IFCD, and that is our volunteer policy. One thing that I would like to see, and I did share this with Dr. Thompson, and I shared it during the committee meeting, I think I would like to see our volunteer coaches go through a training. I know all of our employees have to go through training as far as being a coach, but I think that I would like to see our volunteers go through a training as well, because we need to, if we're doing this for our kids and we're doing what's best for them, then I think that training our volunteers is what's best for them.
We've got to be very careful with the information, especially that we share with our parent volunteers. As you know, that would be a violation of federal law.
When you said training, I'm sorry,
go ahead.
When you said training, what type of training you talking about? Policy training, or I mean, be specific, because I don't understand what training. What were you talking? If you're a coach in a specific sport, you need to be trained in that area. I mean, explain to me, what are you saying?
I think that to set the guidelines for what we expect as a district, because I think that our employees know what we expect as a district. And Dr. Thompson shared with me that our coaches have to go through a training from the
Darkness to Light? Is it Darkness to
That
Light?
one I wouldn't be opposed to, but there's another one that the high school league
Certifies coaches.
Yeah, certifies coaches. And I don't know if we need to go to that extent to certify all of them, but it sure wouldn't hurt to have some sort of training set and have it district-wide, because we don't know if we have that one school that has twice the amount of everybody else. We don't know what type of, are we getting quality coaches? Are we just having a warm body there?
Yeah, not necessarily training to teach X's and O's, because obviously
Yeah,
they're bringing them in because of their skill set.
Sure.
The best example I can give to that, Google has a staff of folks that work with our children after school, and they were brought in for a day training to go over our policies and procedures on the rights of students, privacy rights, and how to deal with certain situations, to make them familiar with our policies and procedures if certain situations arise. So,
well, that's what I was asking. I wanted a specific on the type of training that we're talking about. Okay. All right.
Trying to keep from having any liability issues.
Okay, that's what I was saying.
Ms. Moore?
Yeah, my question is, when it comes to the selection of your team, and when you have volunteer parents, is it assured that they're not going to be biased to choose their children instead of the person with the better skills?
Yes, ma'am, that certainly was discussed. That was certainly something that's been discussed. There's been some concerns that we've received.
That's my concern.
Yes, ma'am, I understand. I share it as well. I do. I do want to draw, now come back to Mr. Cooper and Mr. Obie. Thank you, Ms. Moore. Ms. Lee, you had said something, and it rang a bell with me because one of our speakers said something tonight, too, and she was right. We don't have people in place to deal with all these vacancies. I think that rests with us. And it rests with, as a former high school principal, I'm going to tell you, it really rests with the high school principal. Because when they have an opening and they've got a coaching opening, they should be finding a teacher for that coaching opening. That's the way it's always been done. So I'm going to look at myself first, and this is a discussion for the school board. We're trying to hammer this out. I know it's a passionate subject, and we're so thankful for our parent coaches. But it is our philosophy, I think I'm beginning to hear, we'll find out tonight, that we do want an employee-based coaching system. That is what we've had traditionally. And I agreed with the speaker. We have to look at ourselves as a reason why we have vacancies. What are we not doing to fill these vacancies? So I didn't mean, Ms. Lee, I was referring to both the comments you made as well as the speaker. I agreed with both of you that these vacancies are our responsibility. I feel we've got to address them. Mr. Cooper, Mr. Obie, you've been oh so patient. Mr. Obie, we'll start with you since you're closest.
Well, let me first say, but I don't have any skin in the game on this. I don't have any kids in school, and currently right now I don't volunteer coach, so my opinions are totally neutral on that. But it does seem like we're going down a slippery slope if we tell the coach volunteers that we don't want them in our schools anymore. We all heard a lot about up here. We talked about training. We talked about privacy rights and the rights of students and stuff like that. Think of the number of parents that help us out every day in our classrooms. Think about those privacy rights. Think about the tests that the teachers might give those parents, the grade, the input they might have as far as the different students in those classes and the information they might see. That seems to be a bigger privacy risk than the coaches out there on the field helping them.
The Supreme Court's already ruled on that matter.
Okay.
Owasso versus Falvo. It's not a student record until it's entered in the grade book, but I understand your concerns.
Further with that, we're trying to fix something here that seems to work for 100 years. If my memory serves me correctly, we celebrated 100 years of Berkeley High School a year or so ago. So it's worked 100 years where we've had parent volunteers helping out our teams, and nothing's gone wrong. Seems like we're trying to make a blanket policy. It seems like we're trying to make a blanket policy for one situation in the district, whether it be politically based or what, to cover all the schools in the district, and I just don't think that's right. If we're going to employ a coach to be in charge of our children, that coach ought to have the manpower or the woman power to tell a volunteer, no, I don't want you on my team. It shouldn't have to roll all the way up to the AD, to the principal, to the district AD, or now where it's at now, the school board. If we can't hire a coach that can tell a parent volunteer, no, I don't need your help, you're causing me too much problem, that they don't need to be out there in the field coaching, is my opinion. So like the speakers have said, this needs to be a school issue and stay at the coach level and maybe raise the AD level or the principal level, but nowhere at the district level, nowhere at the school board level should we be involved in any of this. That's what I got to say.
Thank you, Mr. Obie. Mr. Cooper, you've waited patiently. Thank you all for being here with us this evening. Mr. Obie, I'm going to defer to Mr. Cooper now for his opportunity to speak. You haven't been given an opportunity, so we'll let you go ahead and say your piece.
I guess I'm a bit confused as well as concerned. I share Mr. Hayes' comment earlier. Every speaker talked about a blanket policy. Mr. Obie just said the same thing, a blanket policy. Maybe the wording is not very clear to the policy, but it's been my understanding all along this is not a blanket policy.
It's not.
This, and the numbers of coaches that we were given information on was about 26 coaches, I believe, out of several hundreds that I have to believe have to be in a school district that's over 30-some thousand children. This is specifically regarding a coach, a parent volunteer coach, coaching his or her child specifically. It's not, and I think the confusion in the wording is a little bit, it kind of groups varsity and JV all together. I think the intent was to say, if your child's on JV, you can help, you can coach, quote, coach at the varsity level or vice versa. And that would only affect less than 20 people, I think, by the time the numbers, when you look at the numbers in the entire school district. So it's not, we have a number, it's 26 people, and like I said, I think there's probably at least 6 to 8 exemptions you can qualify out of those 26 people that have been identified directly touching their children. So this is not a blanket policy, was never intended to be a blanket policy, and that's where I'm very confused with everybody. And if Mr. Obie doesn't understand that, and we're still asking questions, and it sounds like there's confusion on the board, I'd say the wording needs to be tightened up a little bit if we're going to go forward, because there's a lot of confusion, I think, still. This is not intended to be blanket anything. It's intended to be very specific.
Yeah. Ms. Moore, did you have something?
Yes, my question to Mr. Cooper. When you're saying it's not supposed to be blanket, are we supposed to, each school supposed to have its own policy?
No,
No.
Yeah, I don't.
It's not a blanket policy against all parent volunteers. I mean, we couldn't even have a track meet without that, or a football game without that. It's a district policy, but it's not a blanket against all parent volunteers. It's only about parent volunteers that would be directly coaching their child. To address your point that you made, Ms. Moore, of would that parent get put in a position where they could be, whether they probably didn't do it at all, but they could get put in a position of being accused of favoritism of their child over others, getting more playing time and those types of things. That was the policy, I believe, from the policy committee, from what I was told, not that it's against every parent volunteer for athletics.
No. Ms. Swallow?
Well, so
I'll come back to you, Ms. Moore.
I guess to give an example that was shared with me. So I'm a parent volunteer at Stratford High School, and my child, I'm volunteer coaching with the softball teams. And my daughter comes of age and she makes the team. With this policy, I would have to switch over to maybe track or something else if I wanted to continue coaching and working with children,
Or
which is why people...
B-team is an option too.
So I could switch to another sport, another area. Once my baby girl gets on through, then I could come back to softball if I wanted to.
That's my understanding.
Okay, so it's my child that's driving this. It's, okay. I just want to make, now you guys have me confused. But, so the number of parent coaches we're talking about really are those who, right now, immediately are potentially coaching their own children, junior varsity or varsity, right?
Yeah.
And so, it's not, I guess that's the part of it that's not a blanket policy.
Right.
And we've had the word banned, banning parent volunteers, and that's not what this says.
Ms. Moore, I did want to respond to your comment. I agree with you, Ms. Moore. I believe you were trying to make the statement. Mr. Cooper, I didn't take his comments to mean that this was not a board policy matter. This is absolutely a board policy matter. How we pay our coaches, whether we want it to be employee-based or parent-based, it is absolutely a board policy matter. Sir, you've had your opportunity to speak. Allow us to have a conversation in front of you. We're sharing our conversation with you while we make a decision. Thank you. So, Ms. Moore, I didn't feel that way. I do disagree with you, Mr. Obie. This is a board policy matter. Absolutely is. All right, any other questions or comments?
I do have a question. Obviously, it'll go one way or another tonight, but either I missed the memo or I just didn't get all the information that the Policy Review Committee had. If they could just resend that to me between now and the next board meeting.
What information do you want besides the proposed policy?
Well, I know you said there was a lot of misinformation that was out there and a lot of examples or something like that from parents.
Pick up the newspaper. At the newspaper. Now, tonight we've got a reporter here that's going to be able to report.
Yeah,
I've got to tell you, we've never had any type of behavior. I'm asking you in front of these students and these adults to allow us to continue to have this meeting. I ask you respectfully.
So let
Respectfully.
me rephrase that question.
Yeah.
I would like to have all the information that everybody on the policy committee had, including all the minutes, notes, or anything that was taken, so I can better understand this issue.
Oh, we'd be glad to get you some information, certainly. Madam Secretary, if you'll take note of that issue. All
Well,
right.
he already has the draft,
I know.
so that's what we had.
Yeah.
That's, you essentially
So
have it.
just this
and then-
paragraph is all that.
And we talked about the parents and staff members who have contacted us directly.
Okay, so those are just direct contacts to you. They didn't go out to, it shouldn't be shared with the rest
I
of the
don't
board
know
members?
whether they contacted anyone else or not, Mr.
Okay.
Obie.
Yeah.
They
If you have
don't
any
to
specific
tell me
requests,
that.
please make them. We'll give it to you.
I'd like to have all the emails that you guys got or any notes
Done.
from direct comments on this issue so I can better understand it.
We'll put our four heads together and we'll get you everything we have. Ms. Swab.
I do have one other thing. When Mr. Obie said that, you know, there have never been any problems, as someone who has spent 30 years in education, there have been problems around this issue. And I think more often than not, what you find is that parents will just remove, you know, their children from those situations. And it, you know, there's politics at every level. Every school has its own politics. Every school district has its own. And so I want to go on the record as saying I was personally surprised that we did not already have this policy. As a matter of fact, I think I actually said that to one of the first people that called me. I said, no, you know, this is already a policy. I'm sure that it is. And I taught in this district for 17 years. I had to go and look and go, oh my goodness, we do not have a policy around that, and we should. Because as an English teacher, I did go to the coaching staff, and I did ask for help as an English teacher, wanting to get students to focus on their work so they could continue to be eligible for sports, because for some of them, that was the only reason they were coming to school. I could not have those conversations by law with a parent volunteer. I could not, only with their own child, not with others. And so there are a lot of responsibilities on the backs of our athletic directors. I don't think they get paid enough. And I know everybody gets tired of hearing me beat that drum, but you know, our coaches who are paid are already as busy and overwhelmed as professionals can be. And to add any personnel, HR issues around reprimanding someone or, you know, dismissing them, you know, I think that's adding another layer of responsibility that they will happily take. And it's a shame that there are some cases that ruin it. But the fact of the matter is, our children, we're responsible for everybody's children. And there are privacy issues around this that really disturb me when I think about some of the stories I've heard. And the training may just need to be about those privacy issues. And the fact that you do not talk about other people's children, their grades, their eligibility, their performance on the field, or anything else. And I'm a rule breaker in general, but I get it. I think it's sad that we've gotten to this place where anyone would think that we're not honoring the volunteers that we have and those people who go to so much effort to be with us and to give us their time. There is nothing more important than that. And I want to be sure that that's heard clearly here in the room.